Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
It is Friday, January 27th, and yes, you're on the Friday Power Lunch. I'm Catherine White, your host, bringing you the guests, the issues, the action. We are fueling the grassroots to get things done, and yes, you know us, making politics fun. So I want to make sure that we start out the show introducing the guests we're going to meet today. So first up, we're talking about courageous women, rising with some courageous, badass women. Jess Piper. Hello, Jess. How are you doing? And you're the former candidate for State Representative Missouri 1, also the Executive Director for Blue Missouri. And everybody that may know you in the room, you are a social media influencer. And I love that you're doing this podcast, Dirt Road Democrat. We'll get to that, but how are you doing? I know you're busier than a Dirt Road Democrat, I guess.
I'm doing really well. I'm trying not to get thrown out of my hotel room right now. We're supposed to be out at 11 o'clock. So anyway, if you see people coming in to vacuum, it's fine. Everything's fine. We're going to let it go. But I'm doing really well. I'm in between events right now. I am traveling the state, trying to get people fired up, trying to get people to run for office in Missouri. And I'm so glad to see so many faces here. This is fantastic.
No, it's so great. If people want to turn on their video, even if they're tuned out right now, just to give you a wave or give our guests a wave, super. This is great. Yeah, look, everybody's giving the wave. I love it. And I've had that happen too, where they came to knock on my door and wouldn't stop. So I think we have to have a special podcast checkout hour for hotels. Yeah. Thank you, Jess. I'm so glad to meet you. I'm glad you're here. Jessica Anderson, some of you may know her as the crazy runner mother. And by the way, you are running for the new seat of Virginia House Delegate 71. But let's say, did you run this morning?
I actually have not ran yet. I have an appointment at 4:10 at Orange Theory. I will get it in before the day is out, I promise.
I'm sure that's great for mental health, but we're so excited to interview you today and talk about the courage you have to step up and run. So great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and then last up, we have two more wonderful guests. Alexsis Rodgers, you're chair of the Congressional CD4. You're an organizing director at the National Domestic Workers Alliance, the Care in Action, but you're also here today to talk about your running in the Virginia Senate seat. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing today over there.
Yeah, so I'm going to be running to follow in the footsteps of Jen McClellan, who is going to Congress and has been such a champion for us in the state legislature. So I'm honored to be running to follow her steps.
Yeah, it's so great. I can't wait to talk to you. So are you in Richmond today? How are things going in your town?
Yeah, I'm in Richmond. I've been busy this week. This is our first week officially launched as a campaign. So I've been raising a lot of money. I know we've got a lot of candidates on here who know what that's like. And I've been really humbled by the support so far and excited to share a little bit about my journey with you all today.
Yeah, and we know there are a lot of people in these primary seats running. We were wanting to do a show on Courage Rising, and you caught our eye. So glad that you're able to be with us today. Super. And we next up, I want to introduce someone who's been on the show before, because we know that there's organizations that are going to be really helping us in Virginia. So I would love to introduce Nicole Hobbs. She's the co-founder and executive director of EveryDistrict. Hello, Nicole. Welcome back on the show.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be back.
Well, we're glad, because in this room is going to be a lot of candidates listening, and I know that you're not set up and ready to go yet, but I can't wait to hear what you'll be doing for Virginia, and specifically those candidates that will be looking for that help. So they'll be awesome. And how are things over there? Where are you coming in from?
I am in DC, so not too far.
Not too far. Well, great. We're so happy you're here today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Oh my gosh. Just so you know, look at this room. It's just so colorful. We just have to say this is probably the best background. And if you see these backgrounds throughout the room, it's because those folks in the room are Patreons. They supported our show and they get this special background every week. So we just want to say special thank you to the patrons in the room. And I love it. You're showing your flair. So thank you very much. And just to get started, some rules on the road. You know, we love that this community has a lot of fun. Just keep it civil in the chat, or the bouncer, the Ambassador Buzz Stare will kick you out. But thank you for using the chat and just go at it, but just please be civil. And then our favorite part, we have the after chat. So after we wrap up after 1, sometimes our guests can stay, but this is for our community to communicate, for you to have the platform to talk about what you're doing, what you're seeing. Maybe you want to share some events. So we hope that you stay and you stick around and find out. And then, of course, like I mentioned, you could support the show, where you can fund our show for $5, $10, $25 a month. That really helps us keep the lights on, and it really supports women doing this work. So thank you very much to our patrons in the room. And it'd be fun to get one today so we can have a special shout out. So we'll see if we can get somebody who wants to support our show. So put that link in there, team. That'd be awesome. All right. So boy, we made it. It's 12:12. I'm all excited. Fennell Norton, MC, co-MC, come on up here. Let's talk about what's going on in the nation, what's going on in Virginia. And I just want to say that I want to interview this famous trash can that Senator Lucas has. Did you eyeball that trash can this week?
I eyeballed that yesterday, and it was hilarious. And so honestly, she's always very funny. I kept thinking to myself, is she going to curse? Is she going to curse? Is she going to make it through? But she made it through. She was awesome. And she got her trash can spotlighted. I think they're even.
Let's show that, Robin, that dirty trash can.
Read through their extreme bans in the trash can. Look, even brought my own trash can with me.
I love anybody that brings their own trash can. So it's super.
I do have a couple of things this morning on the national side, Catherine, that I wanted to talk about. So 2 things in particular. One, I just wanted to acknowledge that today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I think it's just important, just because we keep up with current events, to understand that things are going on. I know we won't have time to talk about it today, but it is an opportunity for everyone on the call today. Just take a minute and go and Google and find some information so that you can understand how important it is to remember and talk about history, because it affects us all, and especially at the day and time that we are in this country today. So that's one thing. I don't know if you want to say something about that or not.
No, I think remembering is really important, and accurate history is just really so important. And I like to segue right into that, because we see that some people, like the Governor DeSantis, is running in Florida and for president, doing outrageous things similar to Governor Youngkin. And he's really following Trump's white supremacy playbook. And I think we have to call him out, because he's saying that the AP program for African-American history should not be taught. So, right, this is very much where it's brought us the Holocaust, if I could just say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so it is the evil, it is the ugly. And you have to also remember that that was one man who started that through a big lie. So I think it's important. It's tough conversations to have sometimes with friends and family, but very necessary. But I'll roll that right into the next thing that I know friends and family are talking about, which is this whole documents thing. And I just want to say one thing about the documents. If you just want to keep it really simple, go to my TikTok, Apples and Oranges, and that'll explain it for you. But the other thing is that, remember, we wouldn't even be having this conversation if the guy who is the orange would have just given the documents back. And so now the National Archives is saying, everybody, every past president who's still here, vice president, go check out your stuff. And you know what? As long as you bring it back, it just won't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that neighbor who stole your little doll, like when they're little and they won't give it back. I'm just saying. Anyways, I think also in that reframing of it, how we talk about it, Antonia Scanton, who's been on the show before, talking about how we frame and reframe the message, is that it's about Democrats are the party of responsibility. I mean, you're not always perfect. Something may happen, but it's how you handle yourself, right? How you definitely, we see that is really the loss in the conversation. Not everything is equal. It's really about that how you handle the situation. So let's bring down that burning down the house thing, where I know that the debt ceiling's been on your mind, and really watching the Republicans threaten to burn down the House and destroy the good name of the United States with their extremist agenda. That it's not a reality show. So what's your thoughts on this debt ceiling debate?
So it's really interesting, and I think what we'll be able to provide folks through other information and TikToks, and I know that we've got some influencers on here who will probably be talking about that too. But this is one of those issues that is a kitchen table issue, and I think our responsibility is to demonstrate to our followers and to people that we know, our friends and family, of why it is a kitchen table issue. And we have state senators, and we have our regular senators and Congress people who know how important this is. If you're worried about your being able to buy food, if you're worried about a recession, if you're worried about your 401k, if you're worried about any of those things, simply having this conversation puts us at risk across the world for this. So I think that we just have to keep on talking about it and letting folks know that this is stuff we already paid for. It's like having a credit card and they give you a limit of $10,000, and then you go out and spend $10,000, and then they go, oh no, you can't have this credit card anymore, I'm chopping it up. So that's really where we are, and we have to let people know what a stupid conversation this is.
It is, but we know these conversations, this is exactly why they put it out there. It's just to sort of confuse, deflect, try to change the narrative. And I'll have to say, after this week of watching the bills go down, and we'll have Louisa with the Grassroots Report here get really into the detail, is that Democrats are putting forth really great things to help Virginia families. And Republicans are doing everything to defend public education. They're not moving on the gun bills, very simple, common sense thing. But it's up to us to tell the voters, because they're even running away from some of their extreme abortion bans that are going in Senator Lucas's trash can. But we can't let it end up in the trash can and just stay there, right? We got to make sure that gets on the Republicans, and that we're putting it out in articles. So for writers in the room, make sure that you're talking about this accurately, because they don't want anybody to know what's really happening on the floor. But just go watch Candy King, my friend. Candy King is just bringing it down in the House. If you got a chance to listen in, she is bringing it. So I'm very excited. So yeah, I'm excited everybody's here. Fennell, I'm excited for the next segment. The segment with Jess Piper that you'll be opening up. But first, we want to make sure that we bring on Louisa Borowski, the head of the Grassroots Coalition, and give her some time to talk about what is happening down in Virginia in the General Assembly. Hello, Louisa.
Well, it is great to be back with everybody for the Power Lunch. Obviously, the big news in Virginia is in Richmond this week. There is a lot going on. It is a quick General Assembly session, and we are moving as quickly as we can with all of these bills that are starting in subcommittee, moving to committee, hitting the floor. And so you're going to be seeing from Stair and I a lot of emails with calls to action. And we want to let you know these are really critical. We've got our members of the coalition who are tracking these bills. They're testifying in committee. But the legislators need to hear from voters. They need to hear from you about how you'd like them to vote on these bills. And so these calls to action that we put out are super simple. Robin and Stair did a time check on how long does it take to do calls to action this week. And they did all of them in my email from earlier this week. And they said it only took them 10 minutes. So please, if you're getting an email from myself or from Stair and their calls to action, just set aside 5 to 10 minutes to send those out. It really makes a huge difference. And we've heard from our legislators, they need to see these because they're going to be receiving emails from the other side of the aisle as well. And if they are getting too much pressure from the other side and they're not hearing from us, it's hard for them to feel safe in taking certain votes. So please make sure that your voice is heard. So I want to share that we've had some legislative successes in Richmond this week, both in the Senate side. One, we got safe storage of firearms bill was passed out of committee to the floor, which is really exciting. This is a bill that we didn't know was necessarily going to be submitted this year, but it has been, and it's getting good response. So please, if you could work on the call to action for that, I will put it in the chat. And also a bill limiting personal use of campaign funds, not just passed committee, it passed committee with a 15-0 vote, which is almost unheard of. We are pretty sure part of the reason for this was that there were a lot of activists down in Richmond for our Democracy Lobby Day, and they were in committee and they were introduced and they were testifying on behalf of the bills. But it was really, really great to finally see our senators take a stand and say, yes, we should not have campaign finance completely open to our own personal use. We need to have limitations, and they need to be documented. So we're really excited for that to be going to a floor vote as well. So most importantly, one, do the calls to action, but two, as these calls to action are going to the floor, we're going to start to ask you just to contact your individual representative, which means we need more people to do them. We need to make sure that we're getting people from across the state contacting their legislators so that they hear from voters from all over the state. So this means once you've done a call to action, please also post it on social media, share it with your, other activists and friends. Make sure that you are doubling or tripling or even more those calls to action and getting other people involved. So I am going to put the links to our current calls to action in the chat. I'm going to challenge you that during this power lunch, please do the calls to action. And if you finish all 6 calls to action, please note in the chat that you've gotten them done. And that, I think, will give us a chance to say, look, take the power lunch time as a way to also reach out to your legislators and make sure that they hear from you. But we're excited. We're pleased to see that a lot of the bills that Republicans are introducing, as Catherine, you said, are being killed by the Democrats. Great news, but it's also good to see that there is some bipartisan support for some of these bills that hopefully will go through. So please keep up with your emails. And thank you so much already for all of the work that you guys have been doing to help support our legislative efforts.
Yeah, it was so nice and busy down there. I know, like I said, Stair was down there all week and watching people testify. We saw Nancy Morgan from Money Out. We saw a lot of the coalition leaders down there. Holly Hazard was there. It was really fun to see people stepping up and very exciting to be involved in this part of advocacy. So thank you, Louisa. Thank you. Thank you. And yes, get busy in the chat. And, I would like to also say, if you're a candidate in the room, raise your hand real quick. Let's just see how many people shoot up to the top of the screen. If you're a candidate, raise your hand. Let's see. We have Sarah, Jenny Kitchen. Who else? Give yourself a hand. Frida, candidate. Yes. Fernando Martinez. How about that? Heidi Drashek is here. Trudy Berry, Max Sawinki. Oh, Max, great to meet you. Catherine White here. I think I got introduced through Fergie for you, Max. So great you're here. Super. Oh, Susan Hippens here. Nice, Susan. And I have to say that your call time you could do during the power lunch. And as Fennell said, that she made sure that she was here for this community. It gave her the strength to keep in action and to keep going. So make sure you protect some of this time to come in this community, because we will be introducing you to organizations and people that can help you. So thank you for standing up, having the courage. Nice round of applause for everybody. And I'm going to hand this over to Fennell. Let's get it started with Jess Piper, if you want to reintroduce her for people in the room. Thanks, Fennell.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with Jess Piper, former candidate for HD1 in Missouri, now the new Executive Director for Blue Missouri and podcaster for Dirt Road Democrat. Jess, I am so happy to have you here today. So I'm going to start by letting you just tell people a little bit about you and then the district that you ran in and why it's so significant.
Okay, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Jess Piper. I am from Northwest Missouri. I'm right on the Iowa line in Northwest Missouri. I'm a mom to 5, a grandma to 3. We have a tiny little farm and a farmhouse up there on a few acres. We are subsistence farmers. We raise our own beef and hogs and gardens and that sort of thing. I was an American literature teacher for 16 years and started feeling the pressure of things after 2016, which I know a lot of people can relate to. I sort of slept through Obama's years because I was like, good, everything's good. We can we can just move about life. And I started getting active with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in 2017. And that really pushed me into other pieces of activism. But the final straw for me was in 2020. I went to vote and there was no one on my ballot for me to vote for state representative, and there hadn't been for years. We hadn't elected a Democrat in 30 years, and we have never elected a woman. And I thought, well, you know, if no one's going to do it, I'll do it. So I did.
So, you know, one of the things that I read, this is one of the things that opened your eyes. There were 50 seats that had gone uncontested. And typically that happens because it's rural communities, perhaps all red, that yep. No one thinks anybody can win in. And I want to read this, and I want you to tell me what you were thinking then and what you're thinking now. And then we're going to get into some of the conversation about why what you do is so important. Hi, my name is Jess, and I'm running for HD1 in Northwest Missouri. I've been told I can't win, but I don't play to lose, ever. I'm a mom, a teacher, a rural Missourian, and a fighter. I believe every Missourian deserves representation. What do you think about that now?
Well, I think I did lose.
Last person lost by 80%, right?
They did. Well, actually, the last person lost by 100% because no one ran. Okay. And then it was 80% before that. So I got 25% of the vote. So that to me was kind of a bummer. But my campaign advisor is a political science professor. And she was like, Jess, that's 1 in 4. Every time you go to Walmart, every time you go to Hy-Vee, look around you, 1 in 4 voted for you. And you're not just a Democrat, you're progressive. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. So it's 1 in 4 this time. What is it next time? Could it be 1 in 3? And then we're half, and then we're the majority. The Republicans played the long games in this area, and Democrats have kind of thrown up their hands in the whole state and saying, you know, Missouri's just not worth it. It's just too far gone. But it impacts every single one of you, and I'll tell you why. We have a state senator. His name was Eric Burleson, and he wrote a law to nullify all gun laws in Missouri.
Yes.
Guess what?
Just stop. 1 second. Robin, bring it in.
I'm currently sitting in a Panera Bread in Rolla, Missouri, home of Missouri S&T, and I was just thinking about something. As Democrats, we can't afford to throw our hands up in dismay in states like Missouri or Oklahoma or Arkansas or anywhere else where they have supermajorities. And this is why. This is Missouri Congressman Eric Burleson. He previously wrote a bill in Missouri that nullified all federal gun laws in the state. Now he has been promoted to a congressman, and guess what he is doing? He's trying to go after federal laws that the DOJ uses to reduce gun crimes. Eric used to just be Missouri's problem, and now he's America's problem. When we don't address extremism in state houses, they get promoted to extremism in the People's House and Congress. This is a message to national Democrats. We can't cede ground anymore, even in places like Missouri. These extremists are writing laws for all of us.
That was nice. I didn't have to say it. That's exactly what's happening. These state houses are going rogue, and we know that extremists are more likely in, you know, primaries to be elected than their more moderate, counterpart. So we have the most extreme folks in our state houses that are then elected, and it impacts every single one of you.
So now that you've gone through this, and I'll tell you when I started to follow you after I started watching your TikToks, which by the way, I think people should know that you have, let's see, I've got this written down. You have 184,000 followers and you have 6.3 million touches. People call them likes, but I call them touches because that means that you're sitting in Missouri when you have a minute and you are touching and really informing people in ways that they can communicate about issues that are so important and why they should care. So, but when you were doing this, I was reading some of the tweets, and some of them were really, really hard from MAGA Republicans, and that's where I thought this whole notion around courage. How do you get the courage to run in a red district where people really ostracize you? How do you handle that? So talk to us about that.
Well, I think I was born to do it. I was born and raised in deep poverty. I've always had to fight for everything that I've had. I've always been the underdog, and I'm just not scared of anything. I'm sick of being scared, I should say. I'm 47 years old and I'm not doing it anymore. No one's gonna, tell me what they're gonna do with children in the state or curriculum in the state. No one's gonna talk down to me because I'm a rural person, and I was just sick of it. So I don't know if it's courage or just dumb sometimes, but we have to do it.
So I love the whole idea about people not wanting to thinking how hard it is to raise money, but you sort of had this idea about how you would talk to people, and you didn't really care about the Democratic Party, not in a negative way, but they sort of have ideas about who they're going to support, but you make this argument about how important it is that we sort of think about how we identify the win, that it's not sometimes about winning, it's sometimes about just starting the fight. You want to talk about that just a little?
Yeah. So like I said, no one has won out here, no Democrat in 30 years, which means that the Republicans didn't have to put a dime into Northwest Missouri for years. And I'm not just talking about my district. I'm talking about the whole top half of Missouri. No one is putting in a dime. I raised $277,000, which blew the roof off of anyone ever in this state. And I'm in a district where I should have raised $2,000. But I was like, when I called the Democrats and told them I was going to run, they were like, well, Rolodex yourself because you're going to have to fundraise. And I was like, I don't know any rich people. Everyone I know is a teacher or my parents, and everybody's broke. So I just got online and I started, motivating people. We can do this. And what happened is I raised so much money that the Republicans, even though they knew I was probably going to lose, were forced to drop money in. They were forced to put in money against a candidate that shouldn't have had a chance. Now, what would happen if that happened across the entire state? We had 40% of our seats last cycle, 2022, that were unopposed, that we handed on a silver platter to Republicans because no one was running against them. Now, how much money would they have to spend if we did this across the state?
Wow. That is a message that I think we all need to hear. I'm from a rural community as well. There are communities across Virginia, across the country, that are rural communities. And I think we're thinking the same thing, in that you may not win your race, and sometimes it's not about winning the race. The win can be identified in different ways, but it can help the statewide races. It can help in our national races. But I think most importantly, you say that everyone deserves to be represented. So talk about that, because when you don't run a candidate, you're saying that this doesn't matter, and whatever Democrats or progressives are there, that they don't deserve to be represented. How do you think about that?
That's true. And we can see it in our educational system in Missouri. We're 50th in teacher pay, 50th in the nation. We're 49th in educational funding. The schools in my area are going 4 days a week because rural kids don't matter to these people. And we have these people like working for the Missouri Federation for Children, which is a DeVos company. And she was interacting with me on Twitter because I have a big, Twitter following. And she said, we'll bring school choice to your neighborhood. My kid goes to a school with 17 other kids in the whole 5th grade. And I said, what does that look like here? And she said, well, it looks like virtual schools and tutoring. And I lost my brain. What do you mean You guys are the same people that lined up at side of schools when people's parents and grandparents were dying from COVID. And you said you had to have kids in school 5 days a week. And now it's okay for my kid to go 4 days a week. That's what I'm talking about with representation. We don't have people that are from areas like me that are poor or rural or struggling going up there to represent, because the only thing that got me out was public education and Pell Grants to college. That's the only way I could do it. And now my kids can't afford to go to college. One had a football scholarship and he played for 5 years and walked out with concussions and broken bones. And the other one carries a gun for the U.S. Army. And that is the only way they can pay for college. There aren't people in our state legislators that are, down in our capitals worried about folks other than basically, the people who donate to them. But they sure don't care about my community.
So then let's talk about Blue Missouri.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited about this. And the funny thing is I learned that I could raise money, but I promise you, I was a cheer and a dance coach for a long time, and it was the same exact skill. You just got to reach out and ask people for money and be okay with it if they can't donate. And I had a lot of people that were donating $1 a month to me, and that was so impactful. But Blue Missouri is an organization where we give 100% of what we take in to candidates. So I'm paid off of tips, so people can tip, whatever. But I've realized that we can't get candidates if we can't fund them. If candidates are on the phone, and I didn't do call time like you guys did because I didn't have a lot of people to call, honestly. So I did social media. But if I can help other candidates, if we can recruit them, and then I say, I got your back, I'll get you money, you go knock doors, you make phone calls, you put on your tennis shoes and do the hard work, we've got your back. And it's worked so well. They gave money to me. I vetted them. I worked with them. So I know, how it works. There's Blue Ohio that's working so well. So we're branching out into these other red states to say, we've got your back, because quite honestly, the Democratic Party does not. A lot of folks think that the Democrats donate to state races, and they don't.
So this is awesome. We've got so much to talk about. I want you to talk about Dirt Road Democrat, though, your podcast.
I'm really excited about that. And the reason I started it is because people don't know that there are folks like me that live in rural areas, and they'll call us out. Like I hear people say all the time, you get what you vote for. This is your fault. You did it. And I'm like, hey, there's 25% of us out here that didn't do this, that are looking, and we're trying to talk to our neighbors and trying to say, Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi aren't defunding your roads. That's the people down at the Capitol. So it's going to be a lot of education and working with people. And that's why I thought I would start the podcast, so people would understand we are here, right? And there's no one coming to save us. We've got to come together and save ourselves.
I love that. And I know Catherine should be coming in any second now, but someone said that last week, and I have said it every day this week, which is, no one is coming to save us. We must save ourselves. But it will be warriors like you, and it will be courageous people like you when we all come together to do that. So I am so excited that we had a chance to talk today, and that everyone else had a chance to experience you. And hopefully they'll get a chance a lot more often. Catherine, did you want to say anything to Jess before?
Yeah, I was like, money shot. Let's make sure that what you just said, we're everybody in the room, right? No one's coming to save us. And I have to say a big shout out to Rural Ground Game in the room and our rural candidates in the room. Please raise your hand again if you're out in rural area. And great to see this community coming together. We have Jenny Kitchen that's run several times, and your story I know resonates with her. Max, Sarah, you get to see Caitlin, everybody that's kind of coming in from all over on our show. Thank you, Jess. Good luck with the rest you do. Ella Webster, there's Ella. Hey, Ella, great to see you. Awesome.
All right,
and
Jess, try that room.
Yeah, so
I gotta run.
Yeah, you better, before they kick you out, girl, you better go.
I appreciate you guys so much. And I'm so grateful for this community, and you guys are so powerful as a group. So keep doing it.
Yeah, we'll be in touch because, David Pepper from that Blue Missouri, he was just on our show. So we're going to keep in touch. All right. So next up, so excited. Thank you for now. Next up, Jessica Anderson. She is stepping up to run in House District 71, the new district. And how are you doing today, Jessica?
I'm good. I'm great.
You're here.
I'm here.
You know what we were talking about in this community, having that courage. And we were down in Williamsburg for the Women's March, Bigger Than Roe. And I looked over and I saw this woman standing there with her sign and ready to go. And I'm like, gosh, I know her. I thought I had to come over and say hi to you because I thought, well, we must be girlfriends. And then I realized who you are. You're like,
oh, that's a girl on TikTok.
I watch you on TikTok, and not just that, it's just really important, your voice, tell us how you became involved. As a mom, it seemed like you were concerned and you had to do something. Is that how you got started in the social media world, that you're like, okay, I got to find my voice?
It really was. So ignoring the long short of it, I was initially a 13-year conservative Christian, which a lot of people don't know. I was raised in a home that didn't have we didn't have a denomination. We didn't go to church. My grandma thought hypocrites were the only people in churches. And she told me, pray, basically like, we believe in God, we love one another, and we pray when things go south. And that was kind of the thing I grew up with. But I met and married at 19 and married at 20, a very conservative Christian Southern Baptist family, and really dove into it. I was, teaching Sunday school, had my kids in the pew every Sunday night, Sunday day, Wednesday evening. Like, I was dedicated. And unfortunately, it took a really tough divorce, having to be not only walk away, but kind of ejected from my church of 13 years. And then taking on the role of being on social safety nets for the first time in my life to provide health insurance and food for my 3 daughters, who were still pretty young at that time. This is back in 2014, 2015. Then going on, and I got to be honest, you playing the fight song at the beginning, when I first started running, that was my mental therapy. And that was one of the songs that just was like, I've got to keep pushing through. That was literally one of my top songs on my playlist.
Awesome, you need that song for sure.
You do. But the biggest caveat and eye opener for me was a combination of working in the public school system. I work in one of the most diverse elementary schools in WJCC.
That is,
and I have
town.
Yes, Williamsburg, James City County. Yes.
Okay.
And kind of just being in the front office, but knowing these kids, knowing their families, seeing the diversity, seeing the needs that are not being met on so many levels. And then my own daughter, who's now a VCU attendee, coming out as bisexual at age 15, COVID. So basically, yes, the day after January 6th, I made a TikTok video. I diverted from my regular silly mom content and said, this can't continue. I'd kind of been in the backdrop on the app, like following amazing creators and like paying attention to politics. But that moment was incredibly pivotal to me. And fast forward 2 years later, here I am with like 619,000 followers and making a lot of content and seeing that we need a need being met locally really bad. We need to continue to maintain that brick wall, and if not, knock it over and get some progress.
What I love about your story, and what I think for, we see people running for office, they're doing things in their community. You're just, like I said, a real working class person. You have a real story. You're in your school system, you're seeing this all, you're experiencing it. And so the authentic thing really comes across. And I remember when you first stood up in this to run in Congressional District 1, where Cousin Rashid had run before, and we were all excited. I heard about this lady, Jessica Anderson's going to run, and we're tracking it, and then you dropped out. And today we're talking about courage. This was kind of scary for you when you really put yourself out there. What happened in that first time out when you put your foot out there?
Yeah. So originally, it was kind of a funny kismet story. October of 2021, I had, on a whim, did the online paperwork for FEC to be on the congressional ballot. It was all like, maybe I'll do it. And then I kind of threw it in the back of my brain. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I get a letter in the mail that tells me, hey, you're on the ballot. You just need to get your signatures in. And I'm like, wait, what? So I said it to my husband, kind of half-heartedly joking, and he's like, let's do it. And when I knew he was on board, I was like, okay, maybe this can be a real thing.
Right.
So I made a TikTok video telling the world, hey, I think I'm going to do this. Over the next week, I collected almost 200 of my signatures, just standing out in front of Walmart and Target in Williamsburg, stopping strangers in my district to say, hey, here I am. I raised $50,000 in 4 days on Act Blue, which was unheard of. I mean, literally grassroots candidates don't do that. And it was not a single corporate donation. These were people from Joe Next Door to Leslie Jones of SNL donating to my campaign. It was huge. And then day 4, after making this viral video about my running, I got not one, but 2 pretty significant concerning threats, one on Facebook and one privately. And the private one especially made me very nervous. They were saying my birth name, my children's name, which is not the same as mine, something I never put out on the internet. And it just hit me. My husband was out of town at the time, so that didn't help. I didn't have anybody like right next to me to be like talking me through it.
Yes.
So I reached out to Qasim. He had been kind of a voice in my ear. And he said, hey, he's like, when I ran, I had signs outside of my campaign office that were riddled with bullets. This is a very real concern. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, I'm a mom of 3 young kids. They're all at home. I don't have the security. I don't live in a gated community. Like, is this really something I'm ready to take on? So basically, that followed up with about me sitting on a couch for 12, 13 hours, doing automatic refunds on Act Blue to every single person, making this very emotionally fueled video to my followers, telling me it's just not the time. And fast forward 6 months later, I'm sitting here going, I have to, like, I can't let this be the end of my story.
No, you know, and I think that it is really part of being courage. It doesn't mean you're not afraid. And I think that, you know, I think that's what it is that it's when we have that anxiety, apprehension, it's just pushing through it, or knowing sometimes maybe it's not the right time, you know, that's okay to have that permission to really then get ready. And I think then it informs your run now, which is a really great district. I think probably a little bit more that you feel more like your home. This is where you're born. You're Newport.
This is my home.
Born and raised Newport News. It's not so big. You're starting somewhere. And I feel like you're just well grounded now to run, literally, to run across Virginia for this. And so just any takeaways or how people, you know, if you anything you want to say before we wrap this segment up about, you know, what you want to do for the district or some of the ideas that you may have moving forward, what people can do for you.
So my 2 biggest platforms, I think, and they're both personal to me, but also something I just see we need, reproductive rights. Obviously, we were out there yesterday with Planned Parenthood fighting to get those bills in the trash.
Yes,
very much
you
so.
had the best pants on. You had some leather pants on, I heard. So good for you.
I had leather pants on and I had great shoes, but my feet are telling me they were a bad decision today. Okay. So we were, you know, those, you know, as a woman who actually had to have an abortion at age 18, this is a personal thing that I went through, a decision I never regretted. I had a safe legal abortion, allowed me to move forward here and have 3 beautiful, healthy children on my terms. Right. So, you know, that's a big thing to me, not to mention I have 3 daughters, and I don't want them to have less rights than me living in the state of Virginia. I can't even imagine. And then obviously the other thing is public education. Working in public education, seeing the benefits of diversity, seeing the attacks from school board to now our state legislators. We're seeing the school choice bill came out and my opponent is completely behind it 100%, ignoring the realities of pulling funds from the school. I mean, the idea that 4 students could opt into this school choice and we could eliminate an entire teacher's salary in a year is not even something that she's putting out into the world and making a reality. The fact that private education has the ability to churn away people for behavioral issues, for grade issues. So this money that they're claiming you'll have access to go do what you want to do, that's not true, because the private schools in this district are not going to take on more than they want. They're not going to take on, disabled. They're not going to take on a lot of marginalized cities. They're going to end up saying, if you're not good enough for our private school, if your parents aren't eligible to do a single income so someone can stay home and homeschool with that money, you are going to be forced to stay in our public education that we are going to destabilize and defund. And it is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Well, let's wrap it up. I want to get to Alexsis Rodgers.
Yes.
You have been just compelling guests, and I know that this is just the beginning of a lot of you running, and so we want you to stay in this community, check in, because when you're going to hear from Nicole Hobbs from EveryDistrict, you're going to learn that there's a world out here that really wants to help you. So Jessica, our pleasure to meet you the other day. I'm so glad that we all showed up for women's rights and we met you.
Yes.
So awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we get everybody in. And Alexsis Rodgers, hello. So exciting that talking about courage and running. This is so great to see you. And, you caught my eye because you were doing so much behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to make sure Jennifer McClellan got through that primary successfully. So everybody in the room, welcome. This is Alexsis Rodgers. She's a candidate in that same district, Jennifer McClellan. And so let's just get right to it. Tell us about you and the courage it does take sometimes to run. Tell us your story.
Yeah. So first of all, I am so glad to be here. More than 100 people gathering here to hear from some incredible women leaders across the country. I grew up in Hanover County, which, if anybody has been paying attention to the news recently, is a tough place for young queer and LGBT students and young people to grow up. But that's where I grew up. My parents were really hardworking and made sure that, me and my brother were well taken care of. And it was in 2008 or 2009 when my dad lost his job. Actually, he used to work at Circuit City. And when they went under with the Great Recession, it really hit my family hard, right? And I didn't understand as a young person how something like one job loss or one paycheck loss could really make the difference in my family being able to afford healthcare, afford groceries, keeping the lights on, right? And it shook me to my core as a young person, and it made me realize that I needed to pay attention to politics and to economic decisions and like the economy, because they weren't looking out for working families like mine. And that's what kind of woke me up. It's what made me decide that I needed to be involved, that I needed to, learn how the process works and be more involved in politics. And so ever since then, I've been involved helping to elect people that do care about working families, people who care about working moms. My mom had to take on extra work, part-time extra jobs to try to keep the lights on and make ends meet. And I've seen just how much grit women in particular have had to keep their families moving forward during some really difficult times. I've tried to be that kind of leader for my family, and I can't wait to be that leader in the state Senate for other families.
Yeah, and you talk about being a millennial and talking about, what your story, which you posted, a queer Black woman living and running for office in the capital of the Confederacy. Such as a juxtaposition, right? Like of that, and the courage that it takes to step up to serve your community. Well, tell us a little bit more about, in the sense of the seat. Now you're going to run, and this is going to be it's going to be short-lived, but you feel like you want to do it. And then what? What do we see this seat, because of redistricting, will have to run again? Give us a little bit of background about this.
Yeah, so this election is going to be like one we have never seen. But the good thing is we know that there is energy and momentum around electing young women and electing women leaders like Jen McClellan, right, who have made history in our communities. And so it is very likely that this election will be a special election in March. We might not actually have the final date until the end of February when Senator McClellan is officially elected to Congress, right?
Right.
And so we could have just a week's notice to organize and actually turn out voters to know where they're supposed to vote, when they vote, right? But the good thing is I'm an organizer.
Yes.
And so I know how to do this, right? And I've been in a community of organizers for my entire political career. And so I've been working really closely with people here on the ground who believe in my vision and leadership and want to see different voices elected to our state Senate. Powerful leaders like Jen McClellan, who have been fighting for our values, continue to serve us in the Richmond area. And so we may only have a week to say to thousands of people, here's how and when and where to vote. And here's how and why you should vote for Alexsis Rodgers. And, we've already hit the ground running with our campaign launch last week with an organizer on my team and a manager. Jamie Maniscalco's on here. She's been helping me raise money. I know many of you know her as well. And every little bit counts. I mean, I think we are going to be in a really strong position to be able to run because of my deep roots in the community, but also because of women like you that believe in my leadership and believe that my voice should be represented in the state Senate.
Yeah, I mean, so much is going on. We need those diverse voices. We see what's happening in the General Assembly. And I do think, one thing I love is that care and action, the workers, that union organizing you have for people, really the working class is so important, And I just have to say, when I saw Governor Youngkin say this 2,500 jobs he wasn't going to even consider in rural Virginia, just throwing out some really kind of racist terminology around it to like scare people, you saying communist China. And just, again, we see the right use this kind of derogatory words to say this, around the word Chinese people or whatever. Anyways, just to refuse those jobs where he's making all this money. He made a ton of money off of Carlisle Group in that market, and then saying to rural Virginia, well, maybe these jobs, we're not going to put them out there for you. I mean, that must drive you nuts, like sort of, thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we have Republicans, Governor Youngkin and Republicans who just completely don't value the hardworking women that are taking care of us and hardworking people in factories and on farms, right? Like making sure that we have food on our tables. The workers that I represent, care workers, so nannies, cleaners, home care workers, the majority of them are women of color. Many of them are immigrant women. They might have different immigration status or, what have you, but they are working just as hard and want the same and deserve the same economic security for their families as any of us have, right? And what I would say is that unfortunately, sometimes it's not just the Republicans who have been in the way of making sure that we make progress for marginalized workers. We've had a more conservative Senate Democratic caucus than I'd like to see. And it's part of the reason why I'm running. Even when we were fighting to raise the minimum wage, there were some members of the Democratic caucus that said, well, maybe not for these workers, or maybe not so quickly, or let's check with the businesses to see what they think first. And, when we have a Democratic majority, when voters have said we want to raise the minimum wage, we can't hem and haw and say, well, let's talk back with Dominion or any other corporation, right? Let's get it done for workers. And that's what I'm about. That's why I'm running for state Senate. And I'm really, really excited to be able to move in this way.
No, I'm excited because I think exactly right. I mean, now we're seeing that, now the wage is past where we were trying to put it at 15, where people do expect a living wage. I wouldn't call that a living wage, but some kind of floor for the wage to be high enough at some point. I still think the federal, it's like 7.25. So thank you for all that work you're doing. I love it. And we will see you back. And I know this will be interesting to see when this special election is set. So thank you for coming in the room. And I'm going to turn it over to Fennell to get it, because Nicole Hobbs is here. And what I love about it is these candidates are going to learn possibly what resources are there coming up for them. So go ahead, take it away, my friend.
Yes. And so, Nicole, wonderful, Nicole. So I get to tell the really great story that when I started to make the decision to run, I joined Network Nova every Friday, and I joined to hear all this great information. But you were one of the first people that I heard on the call from every district. So we're joined with Nicole Hobbs from EveryDistrict, who's been supporting Virginia since 2017. So let's talk a little bit about EveryDistrict, what you guys do, and what your plans are for Virginia.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really great to be back. Like others have talked about on the call already today, 2016 and the 2016 election was a moment where I looked around, I was not happy with the result. But beyond that, it wasn't just that Democrats had lost the White House. Democrats were really a powerless majority in so many ways. I had a background working on state and local campaigns, and post 2016 was really a low point for Democratic power in state legislatures. There had been a whole lot of money spent on the presidential race and not a lot of money spent on state legislative races. And that was really why I co-founded EveryDistrict. Our mission is to flip state legislative districts and state legislatures blue. And the way we do that is helping donors understand how they can invest strategically in these races. There are 7,383 state legislative districts. So if you are one person trying to vet candidates, find all of those donation links, that is not easy. So we take the guesswork out of that for you. We send regular updates to our donors, helping them give money to candidates who need it. And yes, if it's a year that ends in an odd number, that means we are all Virginia all the time. So very excited to be back here and working to keep that firewall in the state Senate and win back the state house.
Very good. So as I said, I was on a call and you were here, and I sent you an email really quickly to say, hey, what do I have to do? Tell me what's important. So can you just talk a little bit? We know that you can't support every single person but you do go in other states. You target particular states. But what do you sort of look at and think about when you're vetting candidates to sort of decide where you might decide to invest or support? And are there other ways and things that you guys are thinking about that you might be able to support candidates?
Yeah, definitely. And I see some links are already put in the chat, and I will put a few more. So if you are a candidate, we have a candidate intake form. Please feel free to fill that out. I have also put my email in the chat. Our focus, broadly speaking, is on competitive districts. And so that looks a little different in every state. We, like a lot of folks, are still looking at the new districts in Virginia. So we have a broad sense of districts and are working to narrow that down. So any candidate, feel free to reach out. One thing that I should flag is we do not get involved in primaries. So if you are in a primary, still feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you, but we won't make an endorsement in your decision until after the primary. And that also means we don't make endorsement decisions until after the filing deadline, just to make sure we don't kind of accidentally involve ourselves in a primary. But the support we can provide is twofold. There's fundraising support, where for the candidates who we endorse, we will share your information with our network of donors to help get more grassroots donations in for your campaign. And then we can also provide strategic support, and that we can provide to a broader range of candidates. And that really is us having worked with now hundreds of state legislative campaigns across the country, and really trying to take best practices that we've seen in other states and make sure that's being shared amongst candidates who maybe only know, candidates in their neighborhood, candidates in their state, but really trying to make sure that when we see success happening in another state, that we are taking that success story and helping more candidates implement those best practices in other places.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. I know we're almost out of time, but is there anything else that you'd want to share that you'd want this audience to know? What can we do to help EveryDistrict?
Yes. So I would say with the links I put in the chat, if you're a candidate, reach out. If you are not a candidate and you're just interested in learning more about state legislative races, sign up for our email list. We are working on some really exciting things for 2023 and 2024, which I can't share all of that yet. But if you sign up for our email list, you'll be the first to know. And the last thing I'll say to try to end on a hopeful note is, elections are hard. Not every year is a good year. 2020 was a hard year. 2021 was a hard year. But 2022 was actually a great year if you were trying to elect Democrats to state legislatures. And so we're really excited to be back in Virginia this year, to have new district lines, to be working with candidates to talk about what we saw that was successful in other states, particularly focusing in on persuasion, and also really just this change in the national environment that we saw, right? Dobbs being in a post-Roe environment, that made a huge difference for our candidates. We now have a governor in Virginia who, as we've talked about on this call, right now he has a record, and we can run against that record and be communicating that record. So very excited for the opportunities in Virginia this year. And thank you so much for having me on the call today.
Well, thank you, Nicole. Thank you. And thank you for supporting my candidacy. I really appreciated it. Catherine, back to you.
Yeah, Nicole, thank you. And I love it, when you said you're throwing out the playbook and starting this year with some new stuff about how you're running and really looking at these competitive districts. I'm really excited. I'm excited that we'll be circling back with you. So thank you for being here. And I just want to say thank you to everybody today. What great fun to have on a Friday, talking about staying in the fight. This is our fight song, and we do it every week. We try to keep in the fight together because there's no better way to do it than with your friends and in a community. And so we will be in the after chat. But before we go to after chat and run credits, I want to say thank you to our new patron, Melissa Lukeson. Let's hear it. Thank you, Melissa, for supporting us. That is awesome. We love it. And I want to say thank you and good luck. We'll be in touch. Jessica Anderson, Alexsis Rodgers, and also Jess Piper. She may have left and on her second part of her journey. And I just want to thank you for showing up today. And next week, we will have a great show as well. Every Friday we are bringing it. I'm just looking to make sure I said thank you to everybody that's been on. I think so. All right. Okay, so we will run credits. And I just want to say thank you to the wonderful team here that brings the show every week. We have Robin Warner, the show wizard, Sarah Calhoun, Ambassador of Buzz, Fennell Norton up there, the great co-host. And we also have Laura Martinez, who our Zoom helper, Michelle McKinney. She is our greeter for our newcomers. And we also have our graphics specialist, Dennis Orsinger, Heidi Dragneff. Scandalous. You're scandalous, my friend. You're our social diva, bringing us all the good news. And our content concierges, Julie Galdo, Alvina McCall, Sally Renholt. Stay for the after chat. That's where it happens. Thank you for being here.